chance. It means I don't know. The word maybe, perhaps ulai, means it isn't about me. There might be other forces here that will change the situation. The word perhaps, maybe, ulai, says, let us decenter the human. Let us not focus on my ego. Maybe there are other ways. Maybe there are unexpected outcomes. Ulai, I don't know. It isn't about me. It is about me and what I know. It isn't about what my civilization know. It isn't about human supremacy. Nature is so much bigger than that. It isn't about male supremacy or white supremacy, our Western civilization that dictates the world's schedule. No, maybe there will be a storm and all our plans will go down the drain. Or a pandemic. Or just a change of mind. Ulai is a way to move from what I know to what might happen. Different perspectives, possibilities, viewpoints, options. Ulai is how we move into what's next and not get stuck in what we know. Ulai is a way to release. And when we move into ulai, which isn't easy because we like to know how things are, then we find the second word, the second prong on our fork. Yesh. Is. Of course I'm disappointed. This room has so many people and so many who couldn't make it today. Because they're too young or because they're too far. Of course we're disappointed. There's so much I wanted in my life, so much we wanted out of this world, and it isn't what's happening. And I'm the privileged one. But to say yesh is to say I'm focusing on what is right now, not on what isn't. And I know that sounds very much like positive psychology. That's a good thing. But this is ancient wisdom. Ulai yesh tikva, a prophet in the suit of civilization says, I'm focusing on what is. He's going to write this book called Lamentations. He will keep waking us up years and generations after his demise to wake up. Yesh, focus on what is, not on what isn't. Because when we do that, we just might stumble onto hope. Tikva. And tikva and hatikva can be hokey and cliche. Hope to see you later. I sign a lot of emails with hope and healing. What is hope? Peter Berger, the sociologist, talks about hope as a sign of transcendence. It's when something beyond human kind of enters our lives, no matter what we believe in. I want to share a couple quotes from contemporary thinkers about what hope is, or might be, for us. Most importantly, hope is not passive. Hope is a choice. Hope is an action. Rebecca Solnit, who's a fantastic thinker and author, says hope locates itself in the premises that we don't know what will happen and that in the spaciousness of uncertainty, exactly where we are right now, the spaciousness of uncertainty is room to act. Hope is an embrace of the unknown and knowable, an alternative to the certainty of both pessimists and optimists. It's important to say what hope is not. It's not the belief that everything was, is, or will be fine. The evidence is all around us of tremendous suffering and tremendous destruction. The hope I'm interested in is about broad perspectives with specific possibilities, ones that invite or demand that we act. Hope is a choice. It doesn't just happen. Reverend Derek taught us on Rosh Hashanah that in order to open new doors, we need new keys. The old keys will not open the new doors. Hope is one of those keys. And I think it's one of these doors that our civilization, our community, our world right now needs to rediscover. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, the late chief rabbi of the United Kingdom, who just passed several years ago, wrote a lot about hope. He considers hope to be the most important Jewish virtue. We can talk about that later. One of the most important distinctions I have learned in the course of reflection on Jewish history is the difference between optimism and hope. Optimism is the belief that things will get better. Hope is the belief that together we can make things better. Optimism is a passive virtue, hope an active one. So just think for a moment, where in my life am I activating hope daily? And where am I activating the, it's not going to turn out well? Hope is an action. So what do those three words have to do with a fork? You might be wondering. These three words, ulai yesh tikva, perhaps is hope, altogether is a single tool. Perhaps a fork, perhaps anything that will help us cultivate reality. And the tool that I'm talking about is as old as the plow and older than the pen. It's a tool that our ancestors, who were farmers and who knew how to live with the earth, gave us. It's a tool that is sitting dusty in our toolkit, and this year I invite us to dust off and reclaim and reinvent, because it might be critical for our individual and collective survival. That tool is called shmita, release. Lishmot is to drop it, to take your clenched fist and open it, to take that which you are holding on greedily and lovingly and drop it. And shmita shows up in the Bible. It may have been an older concept, just like Shabbat, the Sabbath day. Every 7 years, our farmer ancestors decided everything must stop. The earth must lay fallow. Crop rotation is a global wisdom. If you don't sleep, you do not function, nor does your phone. It's good to recharge. And so the farmers would let the land lie fallow for a full year every 7 years, and the farmers would rest. And the beasts and the animals would eat what's there, and the crops would go wild. And you would trust that there'd be enough yield from what you planted in year 6, and whatever ulai is going to grow, and that neighbors will support each other, and you won't die. You will rediscover rest and trust and hope, and on the 8th year, you will start again. There are the verses from the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, on our screen. 6 years, plow, prune, collect. On the 7th year, Shabbat Shabbaton, the Sabbath of Sabbaths. Unplug, rest, sabbatical, for those of us from academia. Rest. Not just you, everybody. Your immigrants and workers, full-time and part-time. This is the promise of shmita. Now you may look at me and say, that was nice when we were a small agrarian society, but now we're not. How the hell do you make shmita happen? And the answer is, it's really tough. In Israel right now, the solutions to make the ancient shmita work in a billion-dollar agricultural economy are audacious, brave, and a little ridiculous. The entire land of Israel is being sold every 7 years to somebody who is not Jewish, so that the Jewish state does not work the land and disobey the Torah. Great! We are obeying the halakha. But shouldn't the land rest? Doesn't happen. So shmita is on us to reinvent, to reclaim as a fork, as a tool, as a way to cultivate maybe is hope. To release the ways we hold on to what we know and to find new ways of being. This is the gift of shmita. And if it isn't going to be the plot of the farmers, it's going to be ours. 7 years ago we did shmita. We focused on digital detox. We called it the year of fallow lab and focused for a full year on like a little less Facebook and a little more FaceTime, the original FaceTime. Here we are now, 7 years later. Shmita is an invitation for us to reimagine in the face of the pandemic, home and work, body and mind, better balance. Yes, less screens and more ground. It's a way to think about racial justice and reparations, about the land that we do not own, and to whom it does and to whom it should be belonging. It's about justice in deep ways from the ground up. It's about the land of Israel and the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. Whose land is it anyway? And can Shemitah be a year when we release our hold and find a new way to live on this holy land? And most importantly, Shemitah is about us taking responsibility for this earth that we have not let rest, that does not lie fallow, that our great-grandchildren might not see alive, like Jeremiah. They are going to be on their knees in the suit of a destroyed civilizations because we have not done enough. Shemitah is serious business. In the Mishnah, in one of our ancient texts, here's the warning about what happens if you don't keep Shemitah. There will be exile. There will be complete destruction of civilization. Shemitah is up there with the 3 top prohibitions: bloodshed, murdering innocents, sexual abuse of ourselves and of others, and idol worship, meaning not seeing the divine in everybody and everything around us. For our ancient ancestors, Shemitah was one of the top 4 things to look out for as a virtue, and we don't even know what it is. The problem with Shemitah is not what it is, but what it isn't, and what we need to do about it. So this year, the tool that I want to invite us to think about, this 3-pronged fork, is a way to release. Later this evening, Reverend Derek and myself will be presenting 4 conversations by 4 world leaders about different ways of honoring Shemitah. It is the first of 12 monthly conversations with many partners to reimagine Shemitah in our life, from our bodies to the earth, all forms of justice. We will be inviting you to be part of these conversations and actions so that we can all be here next year and said, I've done something. Because hope is an action, not just something to wait for. And Shemitah says, drop it. But what are you going to do about it? So before I end, here's my invitation for you. On this night of Kippur and tomorrow, I want to invite us to think about 2 things. What will I release in my own life? What is something I'm holding on to right now that I can release to live a better life this year? What's my personal Shemitah? Will I release some of my digital addiction? Some of my fears? Will I release my expectation that there'll be no risk and all will be healthy? Will I risk my release of, you know what your work is. What will I release this year in my own personal life? And the next question is, what will I do this year to let Mother Earth rest a little more? What can I do for the sake of this planet? Because if every single one of us actually really does something daily There might just be a difference. Ulai yesh tikva. Maybe, perhaps, but not if we just swipe left and forget about what is this whole story about. To be a Jew, says Rabbi Sachs, is to be an agent of hope in a world serially threatened by despair. To be an agent of hope in a world threatened by despair. Every ritual, every deed, every syllable of the Jewish story is a protest against escapism, resignation, or the blind acceptance of fate. The whole of Judaism is a set of laws and narratives designed to create in people, families, communities, and a nation habits that defeat despair. Ulai yesh tikva. So on this night, I want to offer you this fork with these 3 prongs, a tool for your toolkit of human thrival and human survival, how to cope and how to hope, how to release what isn't helping you be who you need to be, and how to step up individual and collective actions for this earth. We'll be doing it this year. This beautiful visionary magazine that Sarah and our team worked so hard on has many invitations for reflection, including a thought about a fork and how a fork can be your way to be environmentally conscious. Look for the fork and look for your own way of release and renew. This is our year of release. Perhaps there's hope. We're going to end with the words of Pablo Neruda, a problematic poet who gave us this gift. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once, on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment. Without rush, without engines, we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. And the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fires, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with that. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps perhaps the earth can teach us. As when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now, I will count up to 12. And you? Keep quiet. And I will go.
Chai. Chai. El Chai.
A breath
El Chai.
in the presence of the infinite.
El Chai.
We watch with awe as today becomes
El Chai.
tonight. Like a word
El Chai
exhaled.
v'kayam. El Chai v'kayam. El Chai v'kayam.
Wisdom opens every gate.
El Chai v'kayam.
The change of seasons brings understanding.
El Chai v'kayam.
Time and space and stars move
El Chai v'kayam.
with meaning and purpose.
El Chai v'kayam tamid.
Notice the endless process of creation. Day becomes night. Light rolls from darkness. Dawn rises again and again. Each change a manifestation of the soul of the universe.
El Chai.
May we be guided now,
El
as
Chai.
always, by living and eternal mystery
El Chai.
in the presence of the infinite. We are blessed by this and every evening.
Sing it now, Chai. Chai Baruch Atah Adonai Avocher banu be'ahava.
Stay standing if you feel comfortable, or gracefully find your seat at home with each other here in this room.
Shema.
Shema.
All
השכיבנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לשלום, והעמידנו לחיים, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך, והושיענו למען שמך, והגן בידינו, והסר מעלינו דבר, הסר מעלינו אויב דבר, חרב ורעב ויגון, והסר שטן מלפנינו ומאחורינו.
Oh, the waters in the stream, flowing through the centuries, through the canyons, through the trees. Oh, this be dear to me. And the breezes as they flow from across the seas to your window, where they come from, where they go. Oh, this be dear to me. Oh, this be dear to me. Oh, I believe this is what's worth fighting for. Oh, the desert vast and wide, silent under endless skies. Then you put your hand in mine. Oh, this be dear to me. When you wake, still warm from sleep, half a dream, your soft lips speak. Silent near me, you'll I'll keep. Oh, this be dear to me. Oh, this be dear to me. Oh, I believe this is what's worth fighting for. Help us see that there is so much more. Adonai, if I leave this world too soon, far beyond the silver moon, live your life with love and truth. Oh, this be dear to me. Look, there's love in all that's true. Oh, this be dear to me. Feel the love surrounding you. Oh, this be dear to me. Yes, this be dear to me. Yes, you are dear to me. Baruch atah Adonai, hapoeh sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'al Yerushalayim, ve'al olam.
So in this place, at this time, we want to invite ourselves to rise, to spend a few moments in quiet and listening to the ancient words that maybe will guide us, maybe, to find the voice inside on this and every night, the Amidah. Find a way to rise gently wherever you are. Take a breath, close your eyes. What is the invitation in your soul tonight? What do we need to release? מסול חכמים ונבונים ומלמד דעת מבינים אפתחה פי בתפילה ובתחנונים לכלות ולחנן פני רוח מלכי המלכים ואדוני האדונים.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה ואלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא זוכרנו לחיים, רוח חפץ בחיים, וחותמנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים החיים. I was born in the river of life. 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 I got love for my brothers and love for my sisters, love for the trees and love for the rivers. I got love for the earth and love for the sky, and love when I laugh and love when I cry. I ain't afraid to live 'cause I know I'm gonna die. I ain't afraid to live 'cause I know I'm gonna die. Hey, I ain't afraid to live 'cause I know I'm gonna die. I ain't afraid to live 'cause I know I'm gonna die. Singing, I was born in the river of life. 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 זוכרנו לחיים, רוח חפץ בחיים, וחותמנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. רוח עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני. מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטעם. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומחיי אמונתו תשנה אחר, מי כמוך בגבורות ומי דומך, רוח מביט ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אב הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמנת להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני. מחיי המתים. שאין אנחנו זפנים וכשאוהב לומר לפניך אדוני ואבותינו צדיקים אנחנו ולא חטאנו אבל אנחנו ואבותינו ואמותינו חטאנו.
We acted from aggression. We benefited from a racist society. We gave too little. We denied difficult truths.
Evinu,
We hogged the mic.
Vehilshanu,
We viciously gossiped.
Zadnu,
We zoned out.
Hamasnu,
We chose comfort too often.
Tafalnu sheker.
We took for granted.
We yielded to precedent. We closed our minds. We lied. We made biased decisions. We neglected.
We stayed silent. We engaged in environmental destruction. We privileged the patriarchy.
צררנו,
We stood by when others were objectified.
קישינו עורף, קישינו עורף,
We kept too much for ourselves.
רשענו, רשענו,
We remained apathetic.
שיחתנו, שיחתנו,
We showed our children we cared less for them than for guns.
תיעבנו, תיעבנו,
We thought of ourselves too much.
טעינו,
We thought of ourselves not enough.
תיעתנו,
We took too long to rise up and protest.
The book of life is open tonight. I want to invite our friend David to come here and help us all honestly focus on what we can do to make this year a year of better living.
This is it, right?
בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה. נזכור ונחתם לפניך אנחנו וכל בית ישראל לחיים טובים, לחיים טובים, לחיים טובים ולשלום, לחיים טובים, לחיים טובים, לחיים טובים ולשלום.
me. I'm just exhaling. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that. Perhaps is, so maybe is hope. I don't have much time to speak with you today, so let's just be very clear about breaking some of this down. Maybe is hope. Maybe hope. Maybe is. When I thought about this phrase, I returned back to the women who always inspire me, Zora Neale Hurston and Toni Morrison. If you've ever read Their Eyes Were Watching God or Beloved, you know that the language in that book makes you have to read it over and over and over again until you can figure out exactly what dialect it is that they're speaking in that book. And I finally figured out how to explain the dialect. It is a dialect of only words that are necessary. There's nothing extraneous about it. There's nothing extra about the syllables. It just is what it is. It may come off grammatically incorrect, yes, but it fits into what it is that we're speaking today. Perhaps is hope. Maybe is hope. Cut out the there. Maybe is hope. Hope is a verb of action, but is. Is an action of being. And I would like to encourage you this year of release to be in the phrase is, the word is. And let what you see as is come into your consciousness in a new way. Not that you don't have to do anything with is, because it just is. So we have an opportunity in this year of release to, rather than do something with what it is that we think is wants us to do, we can just sit in the is. And what do I mean by that? Well, how about I encourage you with a litany of is? And I'm going to ask you if you'll help me out, because this is what we do in the black church, even if we are Presbyterian. It won't sound grammatically correct, but it is economical, and it is what it is. Release is. Justice is. Truth is. Love is. Healing. Is. Forgiveness. Is. Love, love, love. Is. Hope. Is. Release again. Is. It's what guides you into taking that next step into action is when you can revel in the is. It is time to put down the tears of when will justice happen? When will truth happen? When will love happen? It's time for us to look and investigate where love, truth, and justice is. And then we can exponentially make a cacophony of saying, here it is. Look no further, just jump into the is. And then when you can understand that, then you can start to look at your neighbor and just say, when it comes to truth, justice, reconciliation, release, you is. I is. We is. Forget about the R. Forget about all that grammar. Just focus in on what is really, truly necessary in that middle spool of that fork is. You had these two prongs before, and that was something, but then came this thing that says, I is. And this thing that is going to help you hold on to the sustenance that you are bringing to your lips that will go through your body. Is the tool, is the middle prong that holds on for certain and doesn't let love, truth, justice, release, or hope drop through. It lets you carry it into the action of hope. So say this with me, repeat after me, and yes, if you're an English teacher, I apologize, but it's okay for today. I want you to say, I is. I is. Oh, you're sounding mighty pretty. Say, you is, and point to somebody. You is. And now let us just embrace one another and say, we is. We is. And this year, let us just be is. So that when the time comes to reevaluate next year, we will be strengthened to do and make hope live.
Avinu
advocate and a part of Lab Shul's Earth team.
And I'm Joan, and I'm helping to organize Lab Shul's Equity and Action team. And I've shown my photography at ritual events.
As we begin this shemitah year, it's on us to act in support of our Earth.
We know that exploiting resources, people, and land have taken a toll. This is evident in the rates of fires and floods over the past few months. And as we deepen our journey to heal the planet, we need to come together to support disproportionately affected communities of color as we ask how we as a community can be part of healing the Earth.
We hope that Lab Shul partners will join us at the very first All Hands, All Hearts meeting of 5782 on October 19th, where those of us invested in environmental justice will gather to talk about how we as a Lab Shul community can support our Earth.
Not a Lab Shul partner yet? You can join at labshul.org/partnerhood or email sam@labshul.org for more information.
Say it with us.
Aleinu, it's on us.
I think October 19th was the date that Amanda was talking about, our first all hands, all hearts community meeting to really step up to environmental activism in all ways in which let's walk our talk of tonight. Aleinu. Before we end tonight, and we have one more closing song and prayer, we're taking time tonight to think of those who are not with us in person, to think of those who passed this past year. Friends and relatives, teachers and neighbors. Some of us are still saying Kaddish at this time for a loved one. Some of us take this night to think of loved ones who've passed a long time ago. As we say Kaddish, I invite us to think of the names of those whose memory we honor and say them out loud to those you are sitting next to. And if you're joining us online, you might want to take this moment to write in the chat, who are the people whose memories you're honoring tonight? Let's take a breath, share names, and then let's rise and say Kaddish together. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך רעותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו, יהא שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה, לעילה ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו, יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל,
Let's sit down for one final time tonight.
Wait, Sarah. Sarah, you're on mute. Unmute. It's the button on the left.
Oh my gosh,
I can't.
that happens every single time. Sorry.
This is an invitation.
This is an invitation
to shape the future of our global community.
To help answer the question of what it means and looks like to belong.
No matter who you are,
no matter your background,
No matter where you live.
This is an invitation
To embrace obscurity.
To dance in the face of the unknown.
To straddle what is and what could be.
This is an invitation.
This is an invitation
To live a connected life.
In 2020, I lost my job.
I lost my father.
I lost my sense of smell.
I lost too many loved ones.
I lost my sense of hope.
I lost my sense of belonging.
It was a dark time.
It was really hard.
still is really hard.
at times, it's been unbearable.
And amidst the storm,
I was still able to sing.
I was still able to dance.
I continued to learn and grow.
Engage in the work of equity and justice.
We did a lot of cooking.
I learned how to use Zoom.
I learned how to use Zoom.
I learned how to sit with what is.
We stretched outside our comfort zones.
We got married.
We had a baby.
I had my bar mitzvah.
I had my bar mitzvah.
my child had a bar mitzvah.
We found a way to celebrate what's good.
And now a new future stands before us.
With so many questions.
What will happen now?
What does it mean to live in this time?
What is the next chapter of our collective story?
Beyond the pivot,
The new normal.
Beyond living in a time of abundant caution.
How will we be able to be?
LabShul has always been at the forefront of figuring out what's next.
They aren't afraid to experiment.
to push boundaries.
To envision possibility.
Join us to imagine a future of digital opportunity.
To invest in a future filled with possibility.
A future that's built on what we've learned.
And what we're still learning. About how to bridge distance with love and intention.
With kindness and compassion.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
What a lovely video. Thank you for joining us for LabShul's Digital Future. If you're watching us online, you're part of the digital future. If you're in this room, you're also part of the digital future and present. I want to thank at this moment every single person who was part of this video. Many of you in this room are watching us tonight, and the team that has made this video and tonight and so many videos and so many nights keep on happening. The musicians and the artists, the volunteers and the technicians, the teachers and the educators, so many hands and hearts daily create this LabShul community. And what began as an idea many years ago keeps growing into something else. We are here tonight because some, over the years, have really stepped up to support this vision. And now that we're supporting so many of you and creating so many ways of reimagining what sacred feels like, this is an invitation for more of you online, in here, to be part of the story, to join our partnerhood, to think what this is of value to you so we can keep on creating digital programs, in-person programs, reimagine hope and isness, this kind of sacred business for many years to come. Thank you for your generosity on this night and all the nights to come in supporting our digital campaign, our ongoing programming, our partnerhood, and all the ways in which we keep showing up. I hope that this is one of many, many ways in which we show up with and for each other, with deep gratitude for all the talent that is in this room on this and every night. There's a slide coming up with all the donate options. Maybe you want to do it after Yom Kippur, but thank you ahead of time. There's the next slide with a lot of thank yous, which is the names of some of the composers and the creators who made our creativity happen. David Broza is with us on stage again. Thank you. Adam Cantor was here earlier. Thank you. There'll be a lot more talent on the stage tomorrow alongside Zafir and Marcus, Naomi, Reverend Derek, Shira, Jeremy, and Leo, and all the invisible hands behind, making sure we are transmitted everywhere. So these are some of the composers. Thank you. And let us look at tomorrow's schedule so you know what's happening on the day of Kippur. Go back to the morning at 9 a.m. We're going to start right here on the stage. So be here for some yoga, music, meditation. And the family worship also begins at 9. There's information on the website for different ages, live, online. At 10 a.m., we're going to go into the rest of our Yom Kippur with 12 noon, our Yizkor Memorial. So whatever it is that you need tomorrow, these are the hours. We're going to take a little break, and in the afternoon, we're going to start at 2:15 with a meditation session led by our teachers from the Zen Center, Koshin and Chodo. At 3:15, I'll be meeting with all the Bar Mitzvah teens and their families. If some of you want to crash, you can. That's going to be on Zoom. There'll be a special session that Naomi and Louis are leading. And then at 4:30, our All Faith Ritual and our Ne'ilah at 6 with breakfast at 7:30. It's a long day of atonement. See you tomorrow. Tonight, as soon as we're done here in just a few moments, I believe we have a slide for the shmita program that is premiering tonight. It is the first of 12 monthly events exploring the year of release. Reverend Derek and I will be moderating 4 conversations between 4 different leaders talking about the body, social justice, Israel, and the world. So stick around for another hour of walking the Shemitah talk. More coming this coming year, but we'll pause here. Let's take another breath together. May this be a night and a day and a season of release and renewal and repair and then maybe hope. We have one last song, one last prayer from the modern liturgy book of all of our lives. And we assume you're going to play along and sing along with us.
And we want to invite
Adam, come on, joining
yeah.
us.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Wisdom comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
There is still a chance that they will see. Yeah. There will be an answer. Let it be. 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 There will be an answer. Let it be. room. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Whisper words of wisdom. Let it be.
When the night is cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me. Shine until tomorrow, let it be.
I wake up to the sound of music. Mother wisdom comes to me, speaking words of wisdom. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Oh, let it be.
Words of wisdom. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Oh, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom. Let it be. Do you hear? Do you hear? Do you hear? Kosher Nevakesh. Do you hear? Do you hear? Do you hear? Do you hear? Kosher Nevakesh. Do you hear?
May it be Shana Tova, friends. Good night. In just a couple of moments, Reverend Derek and I are going to be sitting there right in front of this stage to take the next part of tonight. If you're sticking around, please do online or here in person. May this night be soft and your fast easy. And if you're leaving in this room, please do it as quietly as possible. We're going to start in about 7 minutes. Laila Tov. Shana Tova.
Adam. Adam, 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 Adam.
You are highly encouraged to. Please find your seat. And if you're home or away, if you're in this room, I ask you to please leave now quietly. Shh. Thank you. Let us embrace some peace. We began these late night Yom Kippur programs as an anti-fasting fatigue. Because if you are fasting and you're going to go home at like 9 p.m., you're going to be tempted to start snacking on chocolate. Sorry, did I just say chocolate? Oh, I'm sorry. What did I just say? Shh. I'm holding up a fork with nothing on it. So we started having these late night Yom Kippur programs, and each year it's something else. And in just a moment, we're going to share the first of 5 short videos tonight that are going to invite us into a better perception of this year of release. The introduction is a short video co-created by the leaders of the Jewish Emergent Network as an invitation for this year-long program. This is the first of 12. If you're just joining us, Shana Tova, good evening and welcome. If you were with us earlier for Kol Nidre, we're still here, and we're excited to delve deeper into this conversation about how we can release and renew our lives. I know this is a top priority for every single person on the planet right now. So let's start with the first video, the introduction to this year.
Imagine.
Every 7 years, the earth has a sabbatical, so it can rest and be restored.
Imagine. Every 7 years, you and everyone you work with gets a sabbatical, so we can rest, recharge, refresh.
Imagine.
Every 7 years, all debts are forgiven. Everybody gets a fresh start.
Imagine. Every 7 years, just like on Shabbat each week, we release some of our tasks and tensions to remember what it's like to be a human being and not just a human doing.
Welcome to Shemitah 5782, A Year of Better Being.
Shemitah is a radical Jewish concept, a biblical commandment to imagine a better life.
We are instructed to observe a sabbatical every 7 years so that the land, the workers, the social and the economic system get to rest and to reset.
And while it may sound like a crazy idea, there is historical evidence that Shemitah, to some degree, was observed by our ancestors.
This year, on the Jewish calendar, 5782 is once again the 7th year of Shemitah.
As our world still grapples with the deadly pandemic, this Shemitah year is an opportunity to reimagine what life could be like if we all chose to release some of what we know,
so that we could learn to live more nourishing and balanced lives, to leave the world better for our children.
Shmita offers us a framework with which to focus on hope and healing.
Shemitah was originally designed as an agricultural and economic sabbatical for the land of Israel and its people.
But Shemitah also presents modern society with a model for reimagining our lives.
Overcoming gaps of prosperity.
Strengthening our accountability to one another.
And spurring a lifelong commitment to protecting our shared earth.
The Shemitah year is primarily observed by Jews living in Israel.
Yet wherever we might find ourselves, we can draw inspiration from this ancient tradition and its visionary aspiration of a better life for all.
That is where we come in.
To honor the Shemitah year, the Jewish Emergent Network, in partnership with Chazon, Reboot, the Israeli Shemitah Project, and a few other partners,
designed a year-long program, a special Shemitah project. We're inviting you for 12 conversations and actions, ways to provoke us into reimagining the concept of Shemitah for our modern life.
We divided the year into 4 parts, following the seasons.
We will come together for a full day next fall, hopefully in person, to gather the gifts of Shemitah and plan for the next 7 years. and beyond.
Imagine
a year of honest conversations about what matters most.
A year of local and global commitments to change, big and small.
We're called to rise to our roles as co-creators of a healthier ecosystem, to recommit to sacred, sustainable, and systemic lives.
With more love and more justice.
Excited?
We are.
Welcome to Shmita 5782, a year of better being.
Well, this short introduction that we just watched, co-created with the leaders of the 7 communities of the Jewish Emergent Network, is part of the invitation to this year of release, together with our partners at Chazon, the Jewish Emergent Network, Reboot, and the Israeli Shemitah Project. Each month will be a conversation about one of the 4 seasons, and we're going to hear all 4 tastes of this year tonight in the videos that we will watch in just a moment. My friend Reverend Derek McQueen, who is not a guest anymore at the Lapshul community, but one of our key ritual leaders, has worked with me last year on notions of justice, reparation, racial justice in this country. We're going to be continuing this year. And as we begin this night, this program on the Day of Atonement, I'd like to just for you to frame for us, what is it for you as a Presbyterian minister, as a leader of faith, as an artist, as an American? What is Shemitah this year like? Or what is it about for you?
You know, Shemitah for me is an opportunity to sit back and be in community. One of the things I'm always amazed about in our world is how we come together and then we part, we come together and we part, because we all have different schedules and different things that we have to do. Shemitah gives you the opportunity, if not the time, the ideal that you're supposed to sit and be with your community because there's nothing else to do but be with one another. But what's most exciting about what I just heard here just a moment ago is what I feel is one of the most important things to do in terms of justice is building strategy. When I heard that we are going to sit for this year and plan out what the next 7 years might look like for a community, that to me is the building block of what it takes to make a difference in this world, is to be able to sit in community and strategize and not so much be romanticized about getting up and doing something that may not be heard, but being heard amongst your people and planning together so that you are visually and auditorily seen and heard on a larger scale.
I love that. There's a notion that when farmers in the far gone history, during the winter when they can't farm, would sit home, and that's when poetry happened. And on Saturday, when you're not on your screens, is when you read books again or have conversations. So Shemitah, and we will be doing so this year, is an invitation for conversations that we cannot always have. And so the first of the 4 conversations we're going to have today is about the first season of the year, the fall. And we're devoting the fall to the body, to finding better balance between our work life, our home life, who we are in our heart, in our mind, and how we can be better stewards of our own bodies. We invited Tiffany Schlein, one of our beloved co-creators and artists, part of the Reboot Network, and the author of the amazing book, 24/6. I want to get the full title right of Tiffany's book. The national bestseller, 24/6, Giving Up Screens One Day a Week to Get More Time, Creativity, and Connection. Winner of the Marshall McLuhan Outstanding Book Award. Tiffany is also the founder of the Webby Awards, an author and lecturer, and she kindly joined us tonight from San Francisco to share a few thoughts about how we can bring Shemitah every week to our lives this coming year and recharge our humanity. Let's see what Tiffany has to teach us tonight.
Shana Tova, everyone. I'm so happy to be with all of you at the Lab Shul community, which I zoom into from California, and I love it so much. And I love Amichai, one of my dearest friends. So I'm really happy to be talking to you about shmita, which is such a brilliant idea. So before we get into that, I want us all to close our eyes for a second, and I want you to imagine that your brain, your body, and soul is this incredible garden, and you are the gardener. Now this garden, it's got vegetables, it's got yummy ripe tomatoes, it's got flowers, it's got worms, it's got yummy fertile soil. And your job is to keep that soil as fertile and healthy as possible. So one of the things, you have to water it, you have to feed it, and you have to let it rest. And I think about modern day that, you never want to over farm the soil. You don't want to over garden your garden. And the world that we're living in today, the society that we've created, being online all the time, is like we are over farming our brains, bodies, and souls. We are never giving it a rest. And shmita is this incredible idea that every 7 years, you let the land rest. We are in a shmita year. And I think about rest a lot because, especially this week, because sometimes I have problems sleeping, and it's kind of been happening this week. And when you think about sleep, okay, why do you sleep every night? You sleep so you could be the best version of yourself. You sleep so you're rested, you're recharged, you're rejuvenated, right? You need I need 8 hours of sleep a night. And so every night you need that rest to be your best. And then Judaism has what I think is the most elegant, beautiful idea of Shabbat, the Sabbath, which is that every 7 days, the seventh day, you rest, a complete day of rest. And then to extrapolate out, Shemitah is it's like the Russian nesting dolls of idea, is this incredible idea that every 7 years you need to let the land go fallow and rest. So let's think about the way we're living right now. We never give anything a rest. We wake up, we look at our phone, we go to bed, we look at our phone, we're on screens all day long. And we're not giving the land a rest. I'm in California, and our state is on fire right now. Our world is on fire right now. There is no balance. What do we need to do to bring the world back into balance is to bring back these ancient, beautiful, elegant ideas of Shabbat and of Shemitah. And the way that Amichai and I know each other is through Reboot many moons ago. I think it was, I don't even know, it was over 18 years ago, but we were in the first group of Reboot, and one of the projects at Reboot was we did a National Day of Unplugging, which was a ceremonial day to rethink the Sabbath and turn off all the screens. And my husband and I and our 2 daughters did that, and it felt so good. And I can't even describe to you how much it was exactly what I needed at that precise moment in my life. My background, I founded the Webby Awards. I've always been involved in technology. My husband's a professor of robotics, so we're deep into the tech. And I love technology. I just don't love it 24/7. And I was starting to feel like I was everywhere and nowhere, and I was distracted all the time. And we did National Day of Unplugging, and it came at this very kind of dramatic moment in my life. I just lost my dad. And we turned off all the screens, and we did a full day of Shabbat. And then we did it the next week, and the next week, and the next week, and the next week. We started calling it our tech Shabbat. So we always have people over for Friday night, turn off all screens, beautiful meal, no screens. And then the next day is filled with fabulousness, good food. We go for a long walk, we do art, we read, we do nothing, whatever it is. And lo and behold, it's been almost 12 years now that we've done this practice that's completely changed our lives. And so I think it's really interesting in this whole idea of Shabbat and Tech Shabbat and Shemitah. So 5782 is the year, we're in the year of Shemitah. So I think if you've always thought, oh, Shabbat, that's interesting, I've kind of done it, I want to do it more, maybe I want to try, this is the year to do it, because it's almost like you're double dipping into the bigger idea of a day of rest by the 7 years of rest. It's like, it's so beautiful. And Shabbat itself is just so cool because, now remember, I come at all these ideas, and I know lab show is that optional. I come up with these ideas from a very intellectual place, like, the 10 Commandments, these are these ideas that have lasted thousands of years on the best ways to live a good life, a good, meaningful life. Now, taking a full day of rest, not just a dinner, a full day of rest is number 4 on a list of 10. It is above honor thy mother, thy father, and above do not commit murder is take a complete day of rest. So I think, wow, that's pretty high up there on that list. So this is all me making a case for you to try Shabbat on Shemitah. Oh, and I also love with Shemitah is that, the term sabbatical, so my husband's a professor, and we've had the great fortune of taking sabbaticals, although we really need one, is that every 7 years, the term sabbatical comes from Shabbat and the Sabbath, that they think that professors should nurture their brains by not professing for a year and going off and doing something different. Let their normal studies lie fallow and to inspire their brain with something else. I love that. I love that when you really think about this idea of sabbatical and Shabbat and Shemitah, it's so important to bring meaning into education, to be meaning into the life, and to bring help to our land. Our land has never needed Shemitah more than this year. And we've never needed it. After 18 months of this pandemic, we've been on screens more than ever. We need a break. We need Shemitah and we need Shabbat. The internet is designed to put you in a constant state of wanting more, wanting the next stressful news headline, the next email, the next notification, the shoes, whatever it is. You're just in a constant state of want. That's the way I feel. And every Friday night when I turn off the screens, it's so interesting because I go from a state of want to a state of appreciating what I already have right in front of me. And it's such an immediate feeling when the screens go off that I'm not creating an environment that kind of stimulates my animal instincts of want, and more like, look at the garden and the flowers and things that I already have. So it's such a beautiful way to make that switch in yourself. Now, this is one that might be unexpected, but I love the internet. So every week, not only do I race to turn it off on Friday night, but I'm pretty psyched to go back on Saturday night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I live in the 21st century. And there's this incredible thing called the internet where I can look up anything and contact anyone, and I can do that. So it has a dual effect each week where I'm excited to turn it off, and then I reappreciate it when I turn it back on. Now, this one is very paramount to Judaism, which it gives me a sense of meaning. I think that if your life is a story, the book of life, and the high holidays is a lot about we are the people of the book. Every week I get to process that book, and I get to, Shabbat puts like a chapter ending to that week, and I get to think about that week, and then I can think about that week within the bigger chapters of my life. So it really gives me a sense of meaning to do something with people all over the world on the same day. It also gives me time to process my own life and understand what brings me meaning. And then lastly, it really makes me feel connected to myself, my husband, and my kids, and my animals. And I feel the most connected on Shabbat. That alone would be that would alone be the reason I would do it. But there was all those other things that I listed too. So that's my case for trying a full day of Shabbat in this Shemitah year. It's like really hard to say Shabbat, Shemitah, Shmata, Shvitzi. It's like I love Yiddish. There's a lot of Shma. So try Shabbat in Shemitah and think of it as like this Russian, my family's from Odessa, I'm sure many of you too. Think of it like a Russian doll nesting this idea of Shabbat and rest, within regeneration, within regrowth and replenishing the soil. And let's get back to the ancient rhythms of our society, of our world, of nature. the ancient technology of Shabbat and of shmita. We need to take care of our garden in a way that we are replenishing our garden, because we are the farmers and gardeners of our soul. Thank you.
So we are the farmers and gardeners of our soul.
Yes.
Says the tech lady, our friend Tiffany, who I think is watching tonight. So before we move into the next one, Derek, I want to ask you, what is your takeaway from Tiffany's message?
My takeaway is that I think she's tapped into a deep, deep, deep cosmological reality. This body that we have, this ancient technology of this body, the earth itself, has so much knowledge about how to be. We are told to listen to our bodies and to be aware of our bodies, and then we go to our practitioners and say, something doesn't feel right in me. Our bodies speak to us when we rest and listen to what is going on. We feel something is off. And it is the same thing with the earth. The earth, the fires out in California, it's all symptomatic of the earth has been trying to tell us about itself, about herself, for a very long time. She's been very clear about it. And when we rest with her in those rhythms, and we rest in our bodies in those rhythms, in the great cosmological design of resting and listening and being in community with the earth, with our bodies, with one another, we can actually sort of notice when something is off and can attend to it. And that is what I heard and took away from that, because that's what happens in the garden. You know, if you over garden something, you won't get everything. And when you don't, and in Shemitah year, you are told to go and pick everything that is sort of like left there. Because if you don't, it'll rot. And if it rots, it gets infested. And the land gets infested again from all the little things that are left behind. The earth speaks to us. Our bodies speak to us. That's what I take away from this.
Yeah. I'm reminded that technology is our body as well. When we're holding an iPhone, it is the extension of our nervous system. And when we turn it off, and I will confess here publicly on the day of confession on Yom Kippur, I've been attempting to be unplugged on Shabbat, and I am not. There, I said it. I'm sorry, everybody. And this year, I want to take Tiffany's challenge. Thank you, my sister, and make Shabbat on Shemitah a commitment, truly offline, as one of many ways we can bring this ancient concept to our bodies and regenerate our garden that is deeply in need.
You will notice that anytime I'm contacted by you accidentally on Sabbath, I ignore you completely.
I never text you on Shabbat.
There are times, and there have been thoughts and ideas and things, and whenever we're venturing into that area,
maybe on Sunday, but that's your Sabbath.
No. There have been times where we've sort of planned on doing, and I've just ignored the entire conversation.
Okay, I'm publicly chastised.
But
But
that's because of the respect that I have for Sabbath, because I know that you need it, so I respect it by ignoring you.
Okay. Busted. All right, onwards. We're moving from this moment of truth about how we really need to take the Shemitah year to our bodies responsibly towards the next chapter, the season of winter. When we thought about Shemitah 2021, 2022, we understood that it's not just the parameters of the Jewish law that are about the land of Israel keeping a fallow system and the farmers of Israel. It's got to be beyond. We're not living in Israel, we're living in the world. And so for whoever and however, one of the ideas of Shemitah that it's about cancellation of debts, and it's about really resetting the field about equity and justice every 7 years. It's a very noble idea. So we turned, as you and I have been working on our separation to reparation path this past year, and a lot of it is on our mind for this coming year as well. We turned to one of our leaders and friends and community members, Stash Kotler, who's the CEO of Bend the Arc, one of the national American Jewish organizations doing so much for justice and equity. And Stash invited Gina Green. And Gina is a friend and a teacher who used to work at Bend the Arc. That's when I first met her. I want to read a few of what Gina is doing right now as a strategist, writer, movement builder, consultant, partner, and chief strategy officer at Uprise. She's also the co-host of a Bintel Brief, the Jewish advice podcast from the Forward. She's a native Southerner and the mother of 4. Gina and Stash hopped online to talk about what Shemitah might mean for racial justice in America at this moment in this year. So let's hear this, and then Derek, I'm really curious about your thoughts about that conversation.
Hello, sweet friends. My name is Stash Kotler. I have the incredible honor of leading Bend the Arc and our family of organizations. And I'm here today with my friend, my former staff colleague, my current executive committee board member, Gina Green. And it's our pleasure to be talking about Shemitah. This year that we've just entered, 5782, is a Shemitah year. So we're going to be having a conversation about how the Shemitah can be applied to racial justice and advancing Black liberation in this country. And we are so grateful to the Jewish Emergent Network and to Lab Shul and to all of you who are here. So Gina, I think, well, you know this, I, like many, many Jews living in the United States, did not grow up with a Jewish education in any formal sense or with a household that was having any kind of Jewish practice in depth. So it was really when I was in my very late 20s when I was learning and practicing for my bat mitzvah, which I had at 30, that I learned about the Shemitah. And when I learned about it, it totally blew my mind. It was this moment when I had another one of these realizations that Jewish wisdom from way, way back could be applied to our modern world, our lives. The idea that in the Shemitah and then the Jubilee, there would be a recalibration of power, a redistribution of resources, the release of debt, the different way of relating to the land and to other people and to animals. Such a really, really different and counterculture approach to living life than, for example, we grow up in a dominant culture in the United States of capitalism, of a mythology of rugged individualism. This idea—
Consumption and extraction.
Exactly, extraction. This was just like so different. So I'm curious, you know, there's a way in which Shemitah as a legal halachic practice that has a particular definition, how it's been defined in the past. And I'm just wondering, like, how do you experience and interpret Shemitah as a modern person living in this world right now? And especially, how do you think about it related to racial justice and Black liberation?
Yeah, I think I want to underscore a lot of what you just said in terms of what so many of us in this country grow up without when it comes to Jewish education, and what we do and what we do not know, and what that actually means for our interpretation of it and our embrace of it and our application of some of these concepts and terms and ideals and ideas that really we're not exposed to as children in many cases. And so I think with Shemitah, like thinking about actually the halachic piece, like, well, let's start there for just a second, because I think it's really interesting. Like so many mitzvot that are in Torah, referenced in Talmud, we actually don't know why they're mitzvot. We don't know why we do it. Like, we don't have a really great definitive reason for being told to keep kosher. Like, we don't exactly know why, but we apply a spiritual application to so many mitzvot. With Shemitah, there is like an actual, like you were talking about extraction, consumption, and like the society we live in now. With Shemitah, back in the day, the old world, it was giving the land that rest. And we're not sure if the land needed it. Modern agricultural practices suggest that it's good for the land to take a rest and that the land performs better when it has a chance to rest. And when I think about Black liberation, racial justice, in the context of what it means to actually rest and release right now in this moment, it then pivots the Shemitah interpretation a little bit. Because right now, it feels like to rest, actually to release, is something we actually cannot do. There is so much to hold on to now. There is so much at stake and so much crisis and opportunity in this moment that in many ways, rest and release right now actually means working through and holding on. And I think that for me, I think a lot about, those words, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. And that feels really, really apt right now. And so thinking about what the coming year means for us and Shemitah, it means, I think, maybe releasing ourselves from ideas that keep us from action, releasing ourselves from practices that, whether or not we know or understand in the moment, can be harmful to others, can be harmful to Black people, Indigenous people, people of color. I think it means right now resting from behaviors that don't move us forward. And that in some ways it means actual work and digging in and figuring out what we will do with this crisis moment and if we can turn it into opportunity.
I love that. I love all of that. And one of the pieces that there are so many things that you just said, but one of the pieces that it makes me think about a lot is how do we interpret and think about rest and release as we approach this moment and this year in time Jewishly, knowing that Jews are multiracial, we're multi-ethnic, we have a community that is a people, Black, brown, Indigenous, and white Jews. So as a white person, what is my practice of release and rest? As a Black person, what is your practice? How are our practices going to be different? And what does it mean for me as a white Jewish person and leader to be releasing my own participation in white supremacy, my own participation in racism, actively or unconsciously? What is the work that I have to continue to do, want to continue to do, must continue to do in order to be in this, the principle of Shemitah, which I, for myself, have just continued to associate with a practice of getting to equilibrium, a practice of getting to actual equality, which means that we have to do the work of equity. We have to do that work of restoring what has been denied and deprived and lost in order for us to get into a different relationship with power, with one another, with the earth, with, at every level.
I think, Stash, if I may, I think there's part of this release also for white people in particular. That is a release from perfectionism. You just mentioned that this is a journey, this is a process. I think so many well-meaning white people feel like they've got to do it all right now. They've got to be perfect at it, and they've got to go, all the way, all the time. And sometimes it's like, no, just slow your roll for a second. Yeah. And actually take a step back from even the activism and the engagement and the relationship building that we need. Sometimes even that can be exhausting for people of color in the mix, right? To be in proximity in some cases to, now don't get me wrong, I would much rather be in proximity to well-meaning white people who are trying too hard than Ron DeSantis or the Texas state legislature, right? Like, for sure, that's preferable.
Yeah.
But this community is also, my well-meaning white Jewish friends, Jewish progressives who've been going to the mat, like, it's also, you can take this time to reevaluate how hard you're pushing in some of those directions in your relationships with people of color too.
Yeah, totally. I'm so glad that you raised that. As we think about shemitah as a concept, as part of a Jewish tradition that is both material and real and spiritual, what is the way that we're seeing this shemitah, or this idea of release, while simultaneously holding on in this moment in the United States?
There's, I feel like, so I'm actually going to take us down a level from here to a little bit of practical application, if you will, of these concepts. I mentioned earlier, rest and release might look like work and holding on. And what I meant by that is that in this moment of, we've spent the last 5 years saying unprecedented moment, and it's another unprecedented moment in different ways. What do we do in this moment of crisis? And there's practical things that people can do to take advantage. And one of the things I'm thinking about are two pieces of actual legislation that are in Congress right now that are big, audacious shifts in Black agency and power and leadership, and they're brought to us by Black women leaders, right? Thinking about the People's Response Act by Cori Bush, right? This piece of legislation is basically a reimagining of how we take care of our communities. Because we know police don't, but what are the ways that we can? So, they're thinking about a new division of public safety within HHS, the Department of Human Services, right? And that underscores what it means for communities to be healthy and safety. And again, another prerequisite to Black liberation.
Yeah.
And then also, that's a modern solution, right? We've been saying defund the police for a few years. Activists have been fighting police brutality for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And also, a solution that's a little old is reparations. So there's another bill, HR 40, sponsored by another Black woman, Sheila Jackson Lee, that says, hey, let's look at what would it mean for us to actually make the amends to Black people that we said we were going to do back then and we never did. What would it look like? And to me, that is also foundational to getting toward Black liberation. And those are things people can work for right now. Call your congressman, research the bills, tell your people, we want to make big change. We got 2 Black women in Congress trying to push it forward.
Yep. And I want to ask a final question, which is the shemitah. If we have 7 shemitah years, the shemitah of shemitahs, the Jubilee. So after 49 years, we have this much bigger opening. So how do you think about where we're at in this moment in relationship to the Jubilee? What ought we be thinking about and doing to prepare for that? How does that relate to Black liberation, racial justice?
The interesting thing about Jubilee is that, one of the interesting things is that officially we don't know when it is. Right? So we don't know if this Shemitah year, what year in the 7 cycles are we in this year? So we don't know. Jubilee could be in another, we don't know how far away it is. And so that is, to me, a comfort, because that means I don't have to wait for us for 50 years for us to get there. I don't have to wait 50 years to dream it, but I do know that we won't get there unless we do the really hard work right now. The decisions, the choices, the ways in which we use and direct our energy, our time, our money right now is really, really critical. And so while I'm looking to the future, and I don't know if, if we get to Black liberation in 30 years or 50 or 90, I know that what's ahead is a place where all of us can be who we are all of the time, and that Black folks are able to be a part of leadership at all levels, engagement at all levels, and joy everywhere, right? Like, it's not just about the laws. Laws are important. It's not just about the policies. They're really important too, but our lives and how we live, and that we're able to be who we are with each other, with people we love, in safe communities, in healthy communities. If we get to that point, then we've gotten to Jubilee. But we can't get to Jubilee without going through some shemitah years. And so the work is still ahead. The rest and the release might look like work and holding on. And I think that's really what I want people to go into these next 12 months of our year of 5782, and being able to reflect on what will we do right now to stay as part of helping get us to where we want to go.
That is a perfect way to wrap us up, Gina. Thank you.
Thank you, Stosh.
I love you. I am so grateful to go into 5782 with you. And your comment reminded me of the teaching that I've been carrying with me that you've heard me say, and others probably have too, but it's a teaching from Norma Wong, who has asked, what kind of ancestor will I be? What kind of ancestors will we be? And my ongoing blessing for myself and for all of us is that now that we are here in this shemitah year, that we see it as the most incredible opening for us to live out our racial equity and racial justice commitments, to be part of advancing Black liberation for real. And Gina, Shana Tova.
Amen.
Okay.
What kind of an ancestor do I want to be? Do we want to be? So I want to ask you for some short reflections before we move into the next season.
Release of harmful behavior is so powerful to think about in the year of Shemitah, not just because it's the release of the behaviors in which we are engaging, but because it allows those behaviors not to infect us, so that our judgments for people sort of become sustained and systemic. If you have everything sort of reverted back in the 7th year, then you are given a sense of it's reverting back to you because you have the agency. The circumstance by which you lost it has nothing to do with your agency. And that has nothing to do with who you are. It just happens to do with this circumstance you found you're in. Now you have another opportunity. What that says for race in America is there has never been an opportunity for people to pull themselves away from this leaving behind harmful behavior so that it doesn't become solidified, concretized, and systematized. And shemitah attempts to do that every 7 years. You can't give something back to someone wholeheartedly in a divine way if you don't trust their humanity. And if America could understand that from shemitah, maybe we have an opportunity. And if we can profess that, then we're some mighty ancestors leaving a message for the generations to come.
This is hardly enough time to even begin tackling what you introduced to us, what Gina and Stash are talking about. For those of you watching us on different time zones, it is late. We have 2 more seasons to go. Again, as an introduction to what this year is about, and listening to you, Derek, I'm just thinking that what it will be like if this Shemitah year was an honest conversation about racial reckoning, as the ones we've had, but on a continuous, cyclical attention. So we're going to be spending December, January, and February of this year. Each month will be a series of conversations and actions around this issue.
Great.
And I'm grateful to Gina and Stash for introducing, and we will be revisiting them in the winter.
Very good.
And as the Shemitah year continues, my friends, I'm going to ask you to plan your calendars ahead. We just moved from the fall and the winter. We're moving to spring. It is going to be March, April, and May with our focus on Holy Land. Israel, Palestine. The original location of the Shemitah is the Holy Land. The Shemitah is supposed to be observed only there. And the laws of fallow and farmer resting is only about Israel. It's a complicated reality in Israel 2021 under the Orthodox rabbinate, how Shemitah is observed, how it is not observed. It is mostly a concept that is either dealt with in some legalistic way or overlooked. We invited a dear friend, Netta Weiner, who is the artistic founder of System Ali, a binational, multi-vocal, Arab-Jewish musical ensemble in Israel, operating of Jaffa, Yafo, and Cholon. Our friend Libby Lenkinski, who's the Lab Shul partner and friend, and is a mutual friend, connected us to System Ali as just one artistic version of saying, let's talk about the land, which doesn't belong to Israel or Palestine. The land belongs to the land. Can we bring the concept of Shemitah to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and to what Israel and Palestine need so much? March, April, and May is going to be our focus on Holy Land. Reverend Derek and I hope to be in Israel and Palestine next April. And here is System Ali with a poem about Holy Land.
Hello. مرحبا للجميع.
مساء الخير.
This is Samir Asari. And there's a song we would like to sing to you this evening about this period of time in the year and about the Shnat Shemitah and about us, about the Machzor, about the fact that everything is actually on repeat and this is the beat of the uprising, tearing apart our ears. And we're here together year after year, building the house anew, kav lekav, ot leot, trying to remember what we want to להחזיק חזק and what we want to לשמוט. So, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים.
שבטחים גם יחד.
Time to להתעורר, אס העיניים.
בערפש.
פחד.
בערפש.
חוף.
בערפש.
Fear. Als ist klug und das ist als ja nie alle Mal. Wir sehnen alle Brüder.
בין כיכר שעון.
לתחריר.
أيوة.
גם אם ימשיכו לשקר, גם אם ימשיכו להדיר.
بنقاوم عشان هاي مش رومانتيكة الدوكيوم ولا شي بوستر بنطون. احنا بنقاوم الشيطان اللي مقريب ودخم نطاف والبنون جنون واحنا هون بتعاون بدون تهاون, standing together. Key what makes us sister and brother. Yes. all together ضد القاهر المخبى والظاهر عليك وعليه وعلينا. فتحنا ايدينا قلوبنا عينينا واحدة للتاني. We resist, co-resist before we coexist.
כל הכאבים מלבינים בכותנה הנפקחת, ענן שחור גדול עולה במערב. אין אונים אתה עומד על הארץ מתחת, לראות את עמלך נחרב. אתה לא תתפלל, אתה לא צריך מטפחת, קיבלת משבצת, אנו תוציא ממנה מרב. בס בבלום, בס בבלום, בס בבלום, בס בבלום, בס בבלום.
פתאום קם אדם בבוקר מרגיש כי הוא עם ומתחיל ללכת. פתאום קם אדם בבוקר ומרגיש כי הוא עם ומתחיל ללכת. פתאום קם אדם, דם. כמה דם אפשר לשפוך על האדמה המטונפת, מגואלת, מקוללת, מקודשת. אהבה מקודשת בדם בין אדם לעולם, נכאוב ונזכור את כולם גיבורים. האומנם? דרכנו שוב פונה מזרח לחלום חילוף, יחד נגשים עיטור נלך קדימה אל האדמה. אדמתי היא רחומה, אדמותי זאת אכן אותה הארץ, אותה האדמה. אוי מולדת מולידה וקוברת שלום, ארץ נהדרת שאת יושביה היא אוכלת, רודפת ונרדפת, תוקפת ומתקרבנת. איפה הארץ שקראו לה קטנטונת? את ים המלח מול אדום ואשת לא צופה לסדום, ואני מולך עירום בסדום הבוערת. בצדי הדרך מוטלים מתינו, אך אנו לא נמסור את נפשנו, כי לא טוב למות גם לא בעד ארצנו. ואחינו אל ביתם כבר לא ישובו מאישם, לא ולא הוא לא יפה כמו שתראו לכם חיוך על השפתיים, לא המוות לא יפה כמו שתראו לכם חיוך על השפתיים. אבל את מדקלמת לך מילים, שורות ושירים, מעשה אבות, סימן לבנים, ושוב חוזר הניגון שיתנגן פה לעד, שירי זיכרון, זקפה ועון, הפסקול של חיינו. בכל דור ודור קמים אלינו, לכלותינו שטפי שנאה ומוח עם שכנינו, לא עלינו ובינינו אהבת המולדת, אך דבר טבעי הוא, מדוע תחדל האהבה בגבול?
בס בגבול ביצת בבל, זו אגדה נשכחת. אפשר להסתבך, להתבלבל בין מוצא אל המרחב, עד שכל הכאבים מלבינים בכותנה הנפקחת. ענן שחור גדול עולה במערב, אולי אם תתפלל, אם תצטרך מטפחת, כן זוהי משבצת ויש בה רב. בס בבלום, בס בבלום, בס בבלום, בס בבלום.
אוי חמדתי תשכח ימיני ושכחך יפתי, לעולם ועד אני ואת, לעולם ועד אני ואת. והמלחמה האחרונה ממנה חזרת, כזאת שאין ברירה, צודקת מלחמה צודקת. צוק איתן או עופרת יצוקה, התותחים הרועמים במלחמת מצווה אינם מחלישים את שירי רינה שנצפפו מדמעה ממוות קדושים. לא שלך או לא שלך, אבל אם בכל זאת יקרה הדבר, מותך יהיה לפרטי לא מוות, שכותבים לו כמה שירים, ובטח לא סמל קולקטיבי, דפנסיבי או אופנסיבי, זה לא רוורסיבי. ואם נכתוב שיר למותך הפרטי, לא שיר מלא פאטוס ואקטיביזם לוחמני כי כוחני, זה לא אני, לא זה לא אני. וכשיעמוד על קברך שאעמוד על קברך, לא מילים גבוהות אשלח לאוויר. מטאפוריקות, משובצות באילוזיות וקונוטציות, איכות ספרותית או הדרה לא יפצו את האדרך המוחשי, נפשי לך הומיה. ולמותר ממך דקה דומיה.
Thank you to Sister Mali for this performance that Samira and Neta just created in their living room as part of a much longer system of songs that question whose land is it. And for Shemitah, I hope this is a conversation we revisit in the spring in many ways through our monthly events. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about the poem. Yeah.
You know, spoken word and rap always has a tendency for people to be able to speak something that is not a friendly sort of way of saying things and not sort of poetic, as they said. This is not about metaphor, not about illusion, and they speak so clearly to that. But one of the things that was so powerful about that, especially for Shemitah and why the land needs to rest and how this is important for this conversation, is because they spoke about the poison things that have been planted in the land. The hatred, the death, everything that is planted in the land, and the land is crying out for rest from that. And the only way it can rest from that is from people's behavior stopping and people looking at their behavior. They really called out, not for any kind of like political information or political stand, but they said, stop pouring this crap and tilling this crap in the land. And it was a really powerful statement in that. And that is a message for Shemitah, for the Holy Land. That is, what are you doing? Not just the land, but what are you actually planting in this land? What are you leaving as the legacy of the crops in this land? And don't you think that it needs to rest from hate for a while?
Because of the hour, I will curb the many things in response and gratitude to Sister Mali and to you, Derek, with hopes that we will indeed hang out with him this coming April in Jaffa. And I'm going to move us towards the last season of this year of Shemitah on our planning. We're moving from March, April, May to June, July, and August. Plan ahead your calendar for the summer. And we're thinking about Mother Earth. What does it mean to spend this year not just thinking about our own bodies, about racial justice, about Israel-Palestine, but seriously, daily, about environmental change? I know so many of us are rolling our eyes, even though we know the floods and the fires, the daily reality is in our face. This is the year to really, really and honestly wake up. The last talk for tonight is Nigel Savage, the founder of Chazon, the leading environmental Jewish organization in the United States from its inception. Nigel just did his own Shemitah and stepped down as CEO, and he's on sabbatical in Jerusalem. He is a prolific writer, thinker, teacher, a dear friend, and really, I would say, one of the most important people in bringing Shemitah to the modern consciousness of liberal Jews and people all over the world, beyond its halachic specific reality in Israel. Nigel graciously took his time during his sabbatical a few weeks ago, sending us some thoughts from Jerusalem.
Shana Tova, Good Yontov. Yom Kippur is quite literally an awesome day. It can move us and it can change us. I want to talk about this Shemitah year, this sabbatical year, and the amazing planet we live on that sustains all of us. And I want especially to talk about fear, because I think many of us are afraid right now of so many things. I want to give a sense of how Yom Kippur and the Shemitah year together can help us to confront our own fears and to come out the other side. I'm on the walls of the old city of Jerusalem. These walls were first built in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah, 2,500 years ago. It was a more innocent time when building a wall wasn't just a way to rouse your political base. Just up there is the Armenian quarter. Down this side over here is Silwan. It's a Palestinian neighborhood. It's part of East Jerusalem. If you've ever heard of the Ishbitzer Rebbe, who's known by the name of his teachings, the Mei Shiloach, the waters of the Shiloach, well, those are the original Mei Shiloach down there. And then over there, just behind me, that's what's now the Kotel, the Western Wall, and the Dome of the Rock, Al-Haram Al-Sharif. That's Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount. It's where the Yom Kippur story takes place. A huge chunk of the prayer book for Yom Kippur is a detailed description of the Avodah service, what the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, used to do on Yom Kippur. It's not mythic, it really happened, year after year, just half a mile from here. The purification, the cleansing, the special vestments, the two goats, one of them Seir Azazel, the scapegoat, sent off to bear our sins. This is where it happened. We enacted this ceremony for many, many years. And then our grandparents and their grandparents recalled it year after year for 20 centuries, every single year. It speaks to the ancient wisdom of Yom Kippur. We understand somehow, deep, deep down in ourselves, beyond the place of our rationality, beyond the place of our nominal belief or unbelief, we understand how ancient and wise this day is. We understand that we try and we fail, we feel guilty, we feel ashamed, we feel scared of the future, we let ourselves down, we let other people down, we feel overwhelmed by the world. We feel that everything at some level is just too much. And we understand somehow that this day helps us to face these feelings, to feel them, to own them, to name them, to reflect in the privacy of our own hearts, in the privacy of our own thoughts, even surrounded by so many others, and to say, okay, I am sorry, I am going to do better. This is a new start, this is a fresh start. And this has always been true. It's been true for 20 centuries. But it somehow has extra force right now. We've had a year and a half of COVID, loss of life, people sick, work changes, more changes, disruption upon disruption. Some of it has been good, connecting in different ways, clarifying, reassessing, maybe slowing down. But at this point, so many of us feel whiplash, change and change again. And that segs into this tipping point summer around climate change. We know that by our actions, we've been changing the world's climate. We know that before this summer, we'd read about it, seen it. But then we had the heat dome. 116 degrees in Western Canada, 116 degrees. Floods, wildfires in California, in Oregon, in Greece, in Turkey, in Germany, here in Israel. And then Lake Tahoe on fire and another hurricane in New Orleans. I have to say I'm nostalgic for a time in England when it used to be boring to talk about the weather. So it's not surprising that in the face of all of this, we feel disempowered and overwhelmed. It's too much and we want to turn the page. I want to share with you 3 things that we can all do, and then a 4th thing about fear in a very different vein. The first 3 things derive from this ancient line: you're not required to complete the task, but neither are you free to desist from it. It's true in relationship to many things, but especially in relation to the climate crisis. Because on the one hand, I quite literally can't fix this thing by myself. None of us by ourselves can. Not one person, not one people, not one country. But on the other hand, neither can we desist from playing our own part, each one of us, in this extraordinary challenge that we all face. Jewish tradition in general, and Yom Kippur in particular, is about taking responsibility, owning things, owning up to things. So, number 1, please make some further change in your own behavior. Ride your bike more, fly less, don't eat industrial meat or dairy, get an electric car and make sure your power at home is from renewable resources. you'll figure out what change to make. This won't by itself fix the world, but because it's the minimum we need to do to look ourselves in the mirror or to face anybody in Greta Thunberg's generation, the kids coming past me right now who are going to be alive in the 2080s and 90s and 2100s, inheriting all of this. Number 2, give money and ideally time to organizations and projects that are making a difference. It could be the Sierra Club or 350.org. It could be your Shul's Green Team or Chazon, or any of the Joffrey organizations out there, the fast-growing Jewish environmental world. But be a stakeholder in the organizations doing this work year-round. And number 3, any institution you're part of, it needs to make a multi-year commitment to change. That's what the Chazon Seal of Sustainability is. Any school, any JCC, any Hillel, any camp, any place of work, we need to use this shemitah year from now until next Rosh Hashanah and learn and discuss and plan. We don't have to do everything at once because truthfully we can't, but we need to commit multi-year to change the education we deliver, the food we serve, the power we use, the communal relationships that we're part of, and make responding to the climate crisis a central part of every aspect of every Jewish institution. So if nothing else, I want to ask each of you, each of us, to do these 3 things, which together we call the Brit Chazon, the Chazon covenant. Take a moment right now to commit to them. And when Yom Kippur ends, write them down. Go to the Chazon website to join the growing number of people who are putting their names to this. Yes, I'll make some further change in my behavior. Yes, I'll give money or time to organizations working on this year-round. And yes, I'll email my CEO or my board chair and say, hey, we have to use this year to really take this seriously. We have to make a difference. But now I want to switch gears to talk about the 4th thing, which is more amorphous, a bit less tangible, but it's no less critical. Because although we can and must do these specific things in response to the climate crisis and living unsustainably, I don't think that doing so addresses how scary the world feels right now. As we think about this, what's fascinating is that both Yom Kippur and Shemitah are described in the Torah as Shabbat, Shabbaton, what I think of as the quintessence of Shabbat. It's rarely remarked upon, but it's really significant. It prompts us to ask how these 2 things are connected. We know that Yom Kippur can be a profound experience, but the Shemitah year is no less profound, though we might have thought about it a whole lot less. It is indeed the analog of both Shabbat and Yom Kippur. It's encouraging us to take not one day to step back, but a whole year. It's easy to not pay much attention to it because we assume it's something about land and letting land life fallow, and we assume that's a fine thing, but we're not farmers, so we move on. But Shemitah is not just for farmers. It's about letting things go, holding less tight to things we have or we own, sharing them with others, making sure that those who have less than we do get access to some of what we have, slowing down, looking back, looking forwards, and like on Shabbat and like on Yom Kippur, but for a whole year, obsessing not about what is, but imagining what might be. A deep break, a radical change, resting, slowing, being together with others, breathing ourselves into wholeness, goodness, connection, possibility. We give things up, the natural rhythms of work, the normal habits of production and acquisition. And the Torah's great wisdom is that in doing so, we gain vision and clarity and life and hope that we couldn't acquire any other way. This double gift of Yom Kippur and the Shemitah year comes to help us with our fear, because the crazy pressures of these last 2 years express themselves in so many ways. How we speak to each other, how we think about our futures, our plans, ourselves. I think many of us are more exhausted than we know, exhausted and afraid. And the climate stuff then comes on top of all of this. If I had any musical talent, I could write so many country and western songs right now. It's so much anxiety that nowadays my therapist says, I'm sorry, our 6 hours are up. And we feel this perhaps more so than generations before us, not because they didn't face huge challenges also, but because of the 24/7 media in our pockets, fueling our addiction to bad news, being streamed all the time, everywhere we go, from every possible source. It's in response to all of this that we have this period of repentance that started on Rosh Chodesh Elul and which culminates in this day of Yom Kippur. And it addresses these fears head on. Who by fire and who by water? And we've seen people die from floods and fires just in the last 4 weeks. But these words aren't there to fuel our fears. They're here to help us to face them, to pay attention to them, listen to them, and then start to let them go. That's what the shofar blast is. That's the whole point of it. It is so piercing, so anguished, so literally beyond words. And it takes our fears, yours and mine and all of us, and it literally bears them heavenwards. It sounds and sounds and sounds. It cries wordlessly for all those things for which we have no words. And that's how it is that we end Yom Kippur with a single huge shofar blast. The point of that shofar blast is to face the greatest fear of all, which is what our lives would look like if we were unafraid. Here's how I want to end. I said at the start that just behind me here is where the Yom Kippur story began, where it was enacted every year. But weirdly, that's not the main reason I chose to stand here, right here. The reason I'm here is that these ancient walls of Jerusalem are part of Reshut HaTeva v'Haganim, the Israel National Parks Authority, the same outfit that manages Masada and Ein Gedi and all of Israel's national parks. And I'm here because this year, for Shnat Shemitah, the INPA and the Israel Nature and Heritage Foundation of America are launching Nikayon HaMilyon, a project to get 1 million people out to quite literally clean up Israel. They're partnering with a slew of municipalities and communities, secular and religious, Israeli Palestinians, the Israeli Arab towns, Haredi communities, getting people out, person by person, organization by organization, community by community, to use this shemitah year to help clean up Israel. That's a model and an inspiration for all of us, for taking the ancient tradition, the wisdom of Yom Kippur, and the gift of the shemitah year, and using it to make a real practical difference here and now. Let's commit this extraordinary shemitah year, this Shabbat Shabbaton, this great gift of the tradition, truly to create a healthier, a more sustainable, and a more equitable world for all. May you and me and all of us be inscribed in the book of life for good and for health. Gemar Chatima Tova.
Wow. I think we're going to end on these beautiful words from Nigel with a wake-up call for us to do something ourselves, to be involved with organizations that are doing this work, to focus on multi-year initiatives and strategies that tackle this climate crisis, and to figure out how this Yom Kippur connects to this year of Shemitah in the middle of this pandemic as an unmistakable wake-up call. 7 years from now is going to be another Shemitah. We might be alive, you and me, those of you watching, those of you with us. Will we be able to look ourselves in the eye and say, 7 years ago, we started making a difference? That's the invitation. Derek, I want to give you the final word.
One of our sacred texts reads, "Perfect love casts out fear." I would encourage us during Shemitah to fall in love with the land again. I get tired, I get romantic. Fall in love with the land again. Look at the color purple in a field. Look at the green trees and the orange leaves that are coming as the seasons change, the white snow, the green that blows in the summertime, the bright blue sky, and fall in love again. And you can't help when you're in love but want to protect that which you hold so dear.
Amen. Thank you for joining us tonight. for winter, spring, summer, and fall. All you got to do is call. We'll be here all year round. Every month there'll be another program, the Jewish Emergent Network, with Chazon, with Reboot, with the Israeli Shmita Project, to make this year a year of better being. Shana Tova, good night. Thank you for joining us, and see you soon.